There's the church. I am quite aware that the tide's really coming in quite quick. As I said, I'm sort of keeping my eye on it in case I have to make a sudden dash. This is about 20 feet back from the tent, looking down onto those sandbanks, so you can see the river's really starting to change and get very tidal there. That is so impressive how quickly that's changing. Wow, there's some really powerful waves across there. It's getting closer. This is me keeping my eye on that tide coming in very quickly. There's a castle behind me. Sunset. That's looking downstream. That's a bit of raised levee behind me. That's my tent. Looking back up towards Gloucester, the car park and the pub that's there. If I had to make a dash, everything is in those panniers that I really would not want to get wet. I'll drag that back very quickly up to the levee and my bike. I cannot get over how quickly that river has changed from a little trickle to, I wouldn't say tempestuous, but certainly over there I wouldn't want to be in that at the moment. 8 o'clock. It's now 10 past 8 and all the mud has been submerged. It's lapping up against this little, I would say, grassy cliff. Keeping my eye on it, obviously. About 5 feet below me there's a bit of silt there. I imagine it comes up there sometimes. Not much evidence of silt up here, but the fact that there's like a levee there, a raised path, suggests that it might come up here sometimes. There's the railway going from, I guess, Severn Tunnel Junction, Cardiff maybe, up to Gloucester, up the other bank of the Severn. I've taken precautions because I was unaware this was happening tonight. I've got all my valuables on the ground sheet, sleeping bag and everything, just to pull back really quickly if I had to. I've got my bike back there already. The tent's all virtually empty. I could unpeg that very quickly and tow it back. Oh, there's the full moon. The culprit. The sunset right behind me and there's the full moon rising. It's the first full moon after the equinox, which is why this is quite a big tidal surge. Past 8 now, and the sound has subsided, the waves are dying down, but you're getting a really pungent smell of it's not so much seaweed, it's more almost like sewage actually. It's got a salty sea smell to it, let's say, to be polite. My thought there was I just cannot get over how quickly that tidal surge occurred. 1 minute it just seemed to be mostly mud banks with almost just a little stream trickling down, and then next thing you know the tide's lapping up against the, well, it is the tide, isn't it? The river or the tide is lapping up against the bottom of this grassy hill, I was keeping my eyes on it just in case I had to make a sudden dash. I had all my valuables, sleeping equipment and everything on the ground sheet just in case I had to drag that back quickly. Already got my bike back about 50 yards, but it seems to have passed. All the cars have sort of started up and pulled away. I think high tide was 7:40, but yeah, interesting and unplanned. It's quite a luxurious camp tonight. I've got my trusty millet stick table, and thanks to Terry who recommended the FE Active chair. I was aware of these type of more comfy chairs, but I just never considered them feasible for cycling. It's only when Terry, who's also a cycle tourist, told me that he uses one that it occurred to me, well, give it a go. And it was money really well spent. It's so comfortable, much better than that jog for a stool. It's about 20 to 9 now. There's a lovely sunset behind me looking across the Forest of Dean, and behind the tent is a full moon rising. It's a fantastic evening camping. I was a little bit concerned when the guys said there was a Severn boar tonight. It had never occurred to me that my ride and camp would coincide with that, so I've been keeping my eye on the tidal level. There's some grass that's just above the water, and the water's not getting any higher, but for about 30 minutes I prepared everything to make a quick dash across that levee, that's for certain. The reason I wanted to do this, well, as I said through the winter on a couple of videos I referred to, I wanted to do this in the winter. I'm glad I did it tonight because it's a lovely spring evening. We've had a long period of nice dry warm weather. It's supposed to change on Wednesday. There's some rain coming in before some more nice weather. One of the reasons was I want to start doing back-to-back days cycling. Last week I did the champing 75 miles, then about 16 I think it was eventually to get home. Today was 48 and it'll be about 48 or 49 tomorrow. So it's just getting me used to riding consecutive days, and I'm still building up the old axes. I did another one after the champing video, and I'll probably do one on Saturday or Sunday. We've got a dog coming round for us to look after on Friday, so I'm really looking forward to that. But at the moment I'm just really savouring this fantastic camping experience. It's now 9:40, so 2 hours past high tide, and the water came up about halfway up that bank. I was definitely keeping my eyes on it. It seems to be subsiding a bit. I did see some bits of driftwood go by really quickly, but now it seems to be on the turn. I'm going to get into my sleeping bag. I think it's just starting to cool down a little bit. It's been a lovely evening's camping. I'm going to say good night and I'll see you in the morning. Hello, good morning. It's just gone 8 AM on Tuesday the 27th. I've been up about half an hour and I'm just looking at the river and it looks like it's starting to flood again. There's a boar coming in, high tide anyway. And looking back towards the pub, there's a van and I just saw a load of guys go down with surfboards, so it must be getting quite close to high tide. Just going to have a wander over and have a look. This is the scene then at 8 AM, all the sandbank here, but you can really see a fast flow of tide. Just as last night, it's coming in very quickly. There's the main flow up there and it just splurges out as it comes up. Can't see any surfers out there yet, but there's certainly a load along there. You may just be able to make them out with their surfboards. Last night I was thinking about moving the tent actually, because I kept looking at all the grass and the tide was coming up and up, and it literally got down to that bit of silt there. And I was beginning to think I might have to move my tent. I had everything ready to make a dash, and then it just seemed to stop rising. You could tell the flow subsided. Yeah, it looks like we're in for another, I don't know if it's a boar, but just certainly in for a high tide. back at the tent. That's the whisper light primed and ready to boil some water. Sausage, bacon and mushrooms on the go, now just to heat the beans up. Just gone 8 AM, sat on the riverbanks of the River Severn, watching the Severn Bore, having breakfast. My breakfast was very nice, sat watching the Severn Bore. I'm just boiling some soapy water in my frying pan. I found that's the best way to really clean it off camping. I've got all my washing up done. During the winter I did buy a cheap foldable, collapsible plastic bucket. It's silicone and plastic. I did have a folding bowl, but that was just far too big to take cycle touring. I've had my breakfast, I've washed up, I'm just letting the frying pan soak another 10-20 minutes to get the worst of the grunge off. I've been and used my latrine way back there by the hedges and I've buried it. I'm just sat here on my second cup of coffee. I'm probably going to boil some water just to use it up more than anything for a third cup of coffee. Last night, that full moon absolutely bathed this field. I think it's a bit of a floodplain actually. I started worrying about whether I should have been camped here, to be honest. It just bathed it in moonlight and the tent was just never really got dark, and the inevitable happened. I had to get up in the night. I don't know what time it was, I was too tired to look at my watch, and I just came at her standing and thinking, this is just like a little bit darker than an overcast day, but you could see everything. It was just bathed in moonlight. It's quite amazing actually, and you can still see the river flowing along. Way back on my last camp in December, when I camped up on Imber Range Path, I was just finishing cleaning my frying pan and the foldable retractable handle just came apart in my hand. It was held on by a couple of little pins. I saved all the bits and pieces, tried to repair it at home, but I couldn't. It had just gone. I'm so attached to this frying pan. It's served me so well over the years. I just don't want to get rid of it. So I've just used an old Trangia handle. As I keep sort of saying, I had all the old Trangia kit. I've still got most of it. I don't have the burner anymore. I was looking around for that recently, which is why I bought the Chinese one. And also got rid of the pots and pans a few years ago because they'd sort of got quite disgusted. But yeah, so this Trangia handle from 20 or 30 years ago fits this perfectly, and in some ways it's better because it means it doesn't rattle in transit. You can just keep that in with all my cutlery. It's 9:20 now and the sun's up and it's actually quite warm. If I walk up to the riverbank, the main surge, the tidal surge, has calmed down, but this is why I was getting prepared to possibly moved my tent last night. I'm not sure if you can see that well, but the water is halfway up the grassy bank. I mean, another, I suppose, 5 feet and it would be up on this field, which I now think is probably a floodplain, which explains that raised path along there. I think that's some sort of levee to protect the farmland. But yeah, my logic was sort of saying, look, there's no silt up here, there's no evidence of it coming up here. Then the other half of me thought, well, this does now start look like a floodplain. The latest thoughts on my Fossway trip in June. I am going to use some travel lodges, and at the moment, because of the COVID restrictions, you cannot book them for leisure. You can book them for work or maybe visiting relatives for funerals, things like that, and business. I think that's all due to change on May the 17th. Now this comes really unnaturally to me because I like things like that, accommodation and transport booked months in advance. When I'm on the road, I'm happy to be flexible and adaptable, but it's always nice to know that anchor at the back of your head, that I've got accommodation, even if I'm drenched, tired, exhausted, it's there, even if I don't get there till 3 AM in the morning. So what I'm thinking I'll do is leave it and possibly to the week before, and that way I can look at the weather and think, is it going to be dry, is it going to be wet? If it's wet, I'll just postpone it for a week and go maybe, or bring it forward a week. It just gives me that chance to at least have 4 or 5 days in the dry. That's the plan anyway. That may come back and bite me on the backside because the danger of doing that is I book some and then I can't get the rest, or I book the accommodation and then I can't get myself onto a train. I don't even know at the moment whether you need to make reservations for the trains. Hopefully from June the 21st, if the roadmap out of lockdown goes to plan, and that's only an if, things should be back to normal. So that's my thoughts at the moment. They may change in the meantime. I've pretty much cleared the tent out. As usual, I'm getting everything in piles on this ground sheet, ready to start packing up. I've just changed into my cycling gear in the tent, so I can drop that shortly. It's 10:30 AM now. I'm pretty much packed and ready to go. I was just loading the bike up and I heard all this whooshing. I thought it's possibly a powerboat or a speedboat going up the river. The first thing I've noticed, it's really flowing downstream very fast now. That's almost like a flood. Conversely, at high tide, it was flowing up there very fast, waves and everything, and you could see driftwood going up at a heck of a pace. I know this is the second fastest tidal surge in the world, but you can read it as much as you like. It's not until you see it you realize just actually how fast it is. Oh, the mud's already being revealed as the tide's going out. Very, very impressed by that. Anyway, finished packing, I'll be on my way. That's me ready to roll, all packed up as usual. I've got all my rubbish, getting rid of that in the first bin I see on the road. Just this last item to fold up. It's a German army ground sheet, and I used to use an old B&Q one with eyelets in, but if you sit on that and catch yourself on the eyelets, you can sometimes cut yourself. And I got the recommendation from Simon, Bloke in the Woods. He's another YouTube maker who I watch a lot, and he reckons these are bulletproof, excuse the pun. So that's what I'll be taking probably from now on, just to do all my utility stuff like packing and putting all my food on there ready, lying on it. That's what I'll be taking on the Fossware as well, because although I'll just have my bivvy bag, I'll probably use that as a ground sheet to protect the bivvy bag as well. I'm heading back to Bath now, not exactly the way I come out, paralleling it. There's a couple of churches I want to go and have a look at. I'll say cheerio, as usual. Thank you so much for watching, and look out for each other. Until next time.